Welcome back to another episode with me, Rosalia Lazzarettilli, your money honey on the show. And I am here today to share with you yet again another super money honey, super talented, really building something special on LinkedIn, on social media, building her brand. And if you watch the previous episode, I don't know in what order you're watching them in, but there's another episode where I've said, and we met on a yacht. So just in case you think I'm always on a yacht, I'm not. I was on a yacht once, and this was the same yacht party. It was a LinkedIn yacht party that was basically organized by another previous money honey that's been on the show, who put together, just in case you missed it, put together 10 influential figures on LinkedIn that she has met. She put them all together on one boat, on a yacht, with Prosecco. What could go wrong? So we had a fabulous time. And every day I shouldn't be surprised, right? It shouldn't be surprising. But every day I am surprised and welcomed with more evidence that there are so many phenomenal women in industries that are typically considered to be male trade industries, right? So today for you, to debust that myth and to prove what is possible, because she is absolutely killing it, we've got the gorgeous Kayleigh Graham, the head of partnerships and growth at Telleroo, which is a fintech company that specialises in automating supplier and payroll payments. So if you don't think payroll's sexy, you just wait to hear from Kayleigh and what she has to say for her very own role, for the role that she does in the industry that she's in. She has also, in 2023, she was honoured as a top 50 global women in accounting nominee, a testament to her exceptional contributions and leadership. I mean, if that's not a money honey, I don't know what is. So Kayleigh, are you with me?
Hello. I'm trying to live up to that intro now, but hello, thank you for having me.
It's you. This is all you. Like, I didn't make any of it up. I'm telling the truth. And sometimes I love doing the intros with the speakers. That's something that I do. That's like my little thing. Yeah, everyone's noticed that I do the intro whilst you're live with me rather than pre-record it or record it later. And I just love hyping you guys up. I just love getting you hyped up for the show. And sometimes it really helps hearing back from somebody else, maybe your bio. Maybe you wrote your bio and actually you've never read it to yourself. But then when someone else reads it, you're like, who's that? She sounds cool. So it's all you, girl. It's all you. Give us an intro. Who are you? What do you do? And what have I missed out? Tell us everything about you.
No problem. Kayleigh Graham, head of partnerships and growth at Telleroo. Been here for, I want to say, the last 18 months. But background was originally in banking. So I started off at NatWest when I was 17 in the commercial banking department as an apprentice, and knew nothing about banking or business other than that people had bank accounts. So that was a pretty steep learning curve there. But I was so fortunate to be in a team filled with so much knowledge and people that were so supportive that I just was a sponge. I wanted to know everything from everyone. And as part of that, I had no fear being 17 and it being my first job. There was no fear. I asked all the questions. And as part of that, was able to progress pretty quickly. And I moved into the London team at 19 in the corporate division as the assistant director of public housing, which is about as fun as it sounds. And then hated it, quite frankly, and moved into another role. And it's just been onwards and upwards ever since. And as I say, I joined Telleroo about 18 months ago as head of partnerships and growth to really grow out our accounting channel. And I always say to people, if you'd asked me 5 years ago if I'd like to work with accountants all day, every day, I probably would have laughed or fallen asleep. But it's something that I actually really, really enjoy. And I am definitely one of the people that is fortunate enough to say that I love what I do and I love the people I get to work with.
I love that. Thanks, Kayleigh. That's hilarious. Yeah, that's why I said, most people probably don't think payroll, accounting, fintech. I don't know. Well, a lot of fintech can be sexy, but I guess when you think of sexy fintech, you don't think payroll systems, right?
Definitely not. It's interesting. The other side of what I do, that's kind of the day job. And then the flip side of that is that since being in the accounting industry for the last 4 years or so, one of the things that I very quickly noticed was a lack of conversation around diversity and equity and inclusion. And that's been a huge part of what I've done since joining the space and the conversations that have taken place. And I regularly speak at accounting events and write columns for Accounting Web, etc., all around that. And that is also something that often gets an interesting reaction is when I go, yeah, I'm head of partnerships and growth over here, and I also do this over here. And people kind of go, oh, that's likely a difficult conversation in that space, right? And again, something that I'm incredibly passionate about and fortunate to be able to bring into the work that I do.
That's incredible, and I'm definitely going to dive into that in just a moment. I want to ask you more about the conversation around diversity and inclusion in your space. I totally relate to what you were saying about working in banking and having no clue what was going on, or APR, base rate, interest rate, all that kind of stuff. When I joined the financial world, my first job was with a master broker. So they were doing a lot of like specialist complex cases, bridging, commercial. I mean, look, and I dived into financial services offering bridging finance. And I was like, what's a bridge? And where are we going? What we bridging from and to? I don't even have a mortgage. Like, I didn't even have my own mortgage, let alone understand like loan to value and all that kind of jazz. So yeah, I totally relate to you what it's like to work in an industry that is so jargon heavy, so complex, a lot of compliance, and you're trying to learn it as fast as possible. So being a sponge definitely helps. Again, I just wanted to touch on something else you mentioned about putting yourself out there, building a brand, being quite vocal and open, especially in an industry that, can seem quite boring. How did you make something that is perceived as boring interesting?
It's a really good point, because there definitely is a perception that these things are boring. And I think, if I'm honest, does like the day-to-day work of an accountancy firm get me excited? And I think that's really interesting. No, like that's the honest answer is no. But for me, it's never been about the work itself. For example, when I was working in commercial banking and dealing with the side of that where it was writing credit papers for commercial mortgages or for working capital, whatever it might have been, that in itself wasn't exciting. To me, it's always been about the people behind those businesses. When I sat down with these business owners, it wasn't about the fact they wanted to buy the property they were in. It was why were they doing it? This was a huge step for them, and it was going to allow them to save X thousand pounds on rent every year, and that money was going to go into profits that they were going to be able to take out the business and take their kids to Disneyland, right? And that was always the bit that got me excited, was why did you start this business and where are we trying to get you to? And everything I did in the day job was just supporting that, right? And that's still the case now. It's, yes, we offer payment solutions to accounting firms. Am I particularly excited about payments? No, not really. Am I excited about the fact that through that work, I can help accounting firm owners offer fully outsourced finance solutions to businesses to free up business owners' time to do all the things that they love? Yeah, 100%. And to me, that's what it's always been about. It's not the product that we're selling. It's not that solution. It's why we're doing it and the results that it drives at the end.
Beautiful, yes. And what the highlight there for me is it's what you do is not who you are and is not what makes you you. It's a job, right? And it's a vehicle, it's a product. It's just what gets someone from A to B. And I think a lot of people in the techie space or the finance space, or anyone who's got like a B2C job that is quite compliance heavy or financial related, tends to focus on the product. And so they build a brand, or they start posting about, the rates, the products, the USPs and things like that, where it's, you've just pointed out, it's not that gets you out of bed. It's the means to an end. Like what can that do for somebody? So that's really quite beautiful. And so where did this conversation, let's just dive into the diversity and inclusion conversation. Why did you raise that? How did you raise that? What made you feel like you needed to be that voice? What happened? Where did it start from?
It's really interesting. It's something I've always been passionate about, right? Whether it was in school, in college, in those kind of conversations. In college, I did a course, it was a Cambridge University course on global perspectives, and we talked about difficult topics such as race, class, sexism, all of those kind of things. And it's always been something that I am passionate about. It's something I have a personal connection to, being mixed race myself. And then when I moved into the accounting industry, there are a whole bunch of stereotypes that exist in that space, be it around partners being predominantly men, partners being predominantly white, or the flip side of that is that you have a large Asian community in the accounting industry. So there's a whole bunch of stereotypes that exist, and it's a conversation that I had many times with firms I was working with kind of one-on-one. And the tipping point to that was in 2020 when we saw the murder of George Floyd and this whole conversation around Black Lives Matter, and the entire world was talking about this, and yet the accounting industry was incredibly quiet. And that to me was a really interesting observation, was, hey, everyone's talking about this, but we're not. Why is that? And so I reached out to Accounting Web, which is one of the largest accounting publications, and I said, hey, this feels like something we should be talking about, and I want to say something. And they were incredibly supportive and said, yeah, absolutely. And I wrote a piece that was titled Not Being Racist Isn't Enough. And it was about the movement to become anti-racist and proactive action, etc. And I was really proud of it when it went out. And what was really shocking was the response to that. The response, if you ever want to see the absolute pits of humanity, the comment section on that article is definitely the place to start. And that was shocking to me, because I felt like that was a piece that was really talking about something difficult, and it was raising the conversation, and it was creating a space for people to have a really important conversation. And the comments were, this isn't important, I'm not racist, how dare you say that? And along with a whole bunch of other awful things, right? But that was the general gist, was that this isn't relevant to the accounting industry, and why are we talking about it? And I, to start with, was a little bit deflated, and I was like, oh, okay, that's not the response I was expecting. And then I thought, actually, that is the response that I was expecting, if you actually think about it, because if people were having the conversation, I wouldn't have needed to do that. And so then I went, okay, that just means we've got to keep going. And that's exactly what I've continued to do with Accounting Web, was continue to talk about those difficult topics of how did we broach this? And that evolved into highlighting women in the industry that weren't getting the spotlight and doing a series on that. There was a series of firms I spoke to about what they're doing in terms of best practice around DEI, and we put out those. The latest one has been around hiring and attraction of talent and retention of talent, but particularly diverse talent, and there's been that series. And what came off the back of it was events like accountech and digital accounting show, etc., saying, hey, these are conversations we want to have at these events. How would you feel about giving a talk or hosting a panel, all that kind of stuff? And so it's evolved into something that is now a huge part of my brand in the industry. But what's been incredibly powerful and really amazing to me is the difference in response. That first article, the response was so negative and so uncomfortable to read. And now I host talks at events that are packed out with standing room only. And people are there and they're actively engaged and they're asking questions and they're messaging me afterwards. And the organizer of the events are saying, hey, that was great, let's do something at the next one. And even just in that 3-year period, the response has changed so much. And I'm not wholly responsible for that by any means, but being part of that and having some impact on that space has been absolutely incredible.
Wow, that's insane. Just how again, every episode should, for anyone listening, there's gold being dropped on every episode, and it's always comes back around to use your voice to make a difference, to leave a legacy, to make a positive impact, because your job is not just what you do. That's just your job. You wake up in the morning, you get paid for that transaction, you get paid for that job, and that is it. The world is not going to change. You can't be part of a movement just by, like you said, you can't expect racism to stop just because you're not racist, right? Yeah, it would be in an ideal world if we just all weren't racist. It just wouldn't be something we'd have to consider. But it's about actually fighting for the right thing, right? And using your voice for that. And I love that because, again, my business is all about building personal brands, but it's not about looking pretty on Instagram and having like beautifully decorated posts. Personal brand is about speaking your truth, speaking your and owning your beliefs, and really campaigning for that. So well done, you. Well done. How does it feel? What does it feel like to have that kind of status? It must weigh a little bit on your shoulders, right?
It's really interesting, and I would say the last year has probably been the most impactful in terms of realization for me. I think for the last 8 years of my career, I've just been head down, focusing on just progression and growth, etc. And it's probably only the last 12 months that I've gone, wow, like when I look back at where I started and where I am now, that's been incredible. And this week I was up in Manchester for accountech, and the amount of people that came and found me and were like, hey, I follow you on LinkedIn, I love your content, I love what you're putting out, I love what you stand for, who I had no idea who they were, was like, oh wow. And the messages I had beforehand of like, I'm really looking forward to your talk. Again, people that I've never met or spoken to before. And I think it's probably the first time where I've really sat back and reflected and gone, wow, like that is impressive, and I am proud of myself, and it's great to see that kind of stuff. And it's interesting because I've always been an advocate of women in the whole idea of like own your own success, right? You hear about it all the time. You tell a woman she's done something great and it's, oh, I couldn't have done it without this person, this person, this person. And we tend to pass it off versus male counterparts who will go, yeah, I did a great job, thanks. And I've always been a big advocate of own your own success. If you scroll back far enough on my LinkedIn, there is an article from when I was about 18 that is literally titled like, own your success, or don't call me lucky, call me a badass, or something like that. Yeah. Like, really on, right? It was exactly about that. And it's interesting that on reflection, I potentially haven't done that as much as I should have. So it's been absolutely amazing. And it's given me a new boost that kind of goes, okay, actually, you've put in the foundational work and you've put in the groundwork. And now what does that look like moving forward? How do we scale that? How do you make sure that you are being appropriately compensated for the time and effort that you're putting into these things, right? Because there's an element of giving back to the community and doing the right thing and standing by my values. There's also an element of time, hard work, and audience that I now have that says, hey, there are certain things that you should be being paid for in this space that you weren't previously. And maybe you need to revisit certain conversations you have with publications, with events where you have had a real impact, and what does that look like moving forward? And that's been a new kind of series of thought and things I've had to think about.
Do you mean, are you referring to, now that you've built a following, now that you've built this kind of brand, that you're revisiting partnerships for, for monetary purposes? Sorry, I just want to make sure I didn't misunderstand. So you're going back and saying, look, I used to do this for free. I'm now making a massive shift, right? This is what I charge now.
Exactly that. Because there are certain things that I think I will always do for free because they are very much in line with my values and it's something I want to do. But there are other things where when I am being asked to do things, I'm being referred to people for things, there comes a point where I have a full-time job. And so if I'm going to do these things on top of it, that is very much happening in my personal time. And there is a level of compensation that's needed to account for that. On top of the countless hours I've spent doing my own research, my own education, working with firms, asking these questions, writing these articles, to have the knowledge base and the foundation to now say the things that I say, it's now important to make sure that that is being appropriately compensated.
Honestly, you could not have said that any better, because I've had a few conversations recently where like I'm being, it's a bit cheeky, like they probably don't mean it that way, but they literally message me saying, literally, you've got a large following. We're so aligned in like the same target audience, and we're both striving for the same results, and we're all growing and thriving together. And would you please post this for me? Would you post like an influencer? And they're like, could you just post this? And I'm like, yeah, there is a price for me to to schedule you into my content calendar. And as much as I sometimes post about people and tag people, and I'll have a selfie with someone and then I'll post about them. And obviously I didn't ask them to pay me for that. But if someone actually comes to me and says, I've got this offering, I've got this product, or I'm trying to build my following and things like that, please would you just put me out there? That comes at a price, and I've had to start charging for that. And I say, yeah, if you want to be squeezed into my content schedule and I've got to talk about you rather than me and my business and my customers, then yeah, there is a price for that. And some people would in a heartbeat pay for that, because they're like, absolutely, they get the value of that kind of sponsorship and that reach that they get from the connections. Because I can't pay my mortgage with exposure. You see that a lot on social media, right? People are like, yeah, I can't pay my mortgage just because you said you're going to repost my post, or I'll recommend a friend in the future. Like, that's not going to pay the bills. So yeah, well done for standing up for yourself there.
I think on my side as well, I think people expect it almost more so because they do have a full-time job. So they're like, well, this is something that you do outside of that. So it's not something that you're using to pay your bills. And I'm like, that is true, but it doesn't change the whole
No,
yeah.
That's BS. That's absolute BS. Sorry. Just because you have a job and you get a monthly paycheck doesn't mean that everything else you do outside of that should just be charity. Like, it's not, you can give your time and passion and love and support. I've had people message me saying, oh, could you chat to so and so for like 10 minutes? It's never 10 minutes, it's like a Teams call for an hour, giving them value and inspiration. And you know what, I do love to do that. But yeah, there comes a time where you're like, listen, if you value my advice and consultancy so much, let's do a win-win situation here. What could we both do to make that time really valuable? So yeah, well done for putting that out there. Well done for mentioning it. Thank you for mentioning it on this podcast. I don't think anyone's ever mentioned that before. And it's really important for anyone listening. Maybe you've been in that situation where you've been asked to do something because you're so good at it, and you're being asked to do it for free, and no one's actually respecting or valuing your time. I do agree with little things there are some people though that don't do anything, like any favors. You're like, oh, can I have this? Yeah. You're like, yeah, that'll be an extra $5, please. You're like, a $5? Come on. Sometimes it's like a little thing. You're like, let's just do something, work with me here, let's give a little bit of flexibility. So yeah, there can be two extremes here that I've certainly seen. So Kayleigh, I'm really quite curious about how you get your head in the game. How do you stay fresh? How do you motivate yourself? What do you do to stay in shape mentally and emotionally, with obviously carrying a full-time job and then also advocating for such a phenomenal cause? How do you do it?
Holidays.
Vacay every day.
Yeah, just a few, but it's really important to me. If anyone goes to my calendar, it works out almost like every 3 months I go on holiday, which is a privileged position to be able to do that, but that's what I work hard for, right? Like, that's my break. I have to have the ability to switch off at some point, and I almost view my life in like quarterly sprints. So I'm like, I know that I'm going to be head down for like 12 weeks and then I'm going on holiday, and that's my like reset, right? And that is super important to me. I am also, again, fortunate to be in a position where I know myself well enough to know when I work well. I know when I'm getting to the end of my social battery, etc., and when I've given everything I have. And again, I will take time when I need to, and that just might be an afternoon where I sit in the garden and read a book, right? And I will do that, and I'm very conscious of where I'm at. I think one thing that I always flag to people is that self-care isn't always face masks, skincare, and sunbeds, right? Like, sometimes self-care is working late and getting shit done. And that's also okay, because that's what you really need, because you can go and have all the nice baths and skincare that you want. If all that's playing on your mind is the fact you haven't got this thing done, the best thing to do is just work hard, put the hours in and get that done, and then take that time, right? So I'm a big advocate of that. I think particularly in the current day and age, and I'm aware of the perception that some people have of me, that I am 25 and in this industry, and I do post about being on holiday, and I post that I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I think it's important to say that, yes, a lot of that is self-care and that is how I switch off. But also sometimes it's sitting in the conservatory till 9 o'clock at night, getting something done, because that's what's going to let me go to sleep with a clear mind, right? And I think that's really, really important. The other thing for me is having a network of people that I can rely on. It's definitely something I've struggled with, because if I look at my career journey, like I say, I started off at 17. Most of my friends were still in college, then they went off to university, or they went and got jobs and did whatever they want. And I moved to working like in London, and that is a completely different environment. And I now work in an industry that is completely different to any of my friends. And so that was really hard for me for a good few years, was feeling like I didn't have people around me that understood the industry, understood the money available in like a fintech business, because it is different to other industries, the money that is available. And I didn't feel like I had people I could talk to about those things, that I could talk to about money, about charging for things, about what I planned to do with money, what I wanted to do in the future, without feeling like I was going to sound like I was boasting or was being arrogant or anything like that. And that has been a game changer. I now have a handful of people that I can have those conversations with, and that has been absolutely incredible for my mental fitness and conditioning, of feeling like I have a safe space where I can talk about those things and offload them, and have people that get it and understand.
Yes. Yeah, love that. I really resonate and really relate to what you said, that sometimes the best thing you can do for your self-care is to just get shit done. And I'm currently in that phase right now where I'm every day working on something, like, I need to, there's a speaking gig tomorrow, I need to pack and get ready for that. And so I'm on that. But in my mind, I'm like, and I still haven't done these other 101 things that I want to do. There's projects that I've got on my mind that are about the development of the business, the development of the podcast, the development of the book, like actually growing stuff and developing it. But I'm so tied up with things that I'm actually doing right here, right now. And my mind has been in two places. Do I take the vacay now because I'm like, I can't think straight, I don't know what I want to do? Or would I feel better if I just really forced myself to just get through it and do it? I don't know, because I also know myself that I can't make decisions properly, and I'll just end up doing something, it gets done, but then when I reflect on it, sleep on it and go back, I'm like, oh, actually that's really shit. Do you know what I mean?
100%. And that all comes into that like knowing yourself thing, which is really hard and it takes time. But then once you're there, it's 100% that I know when I need to knuckle down, get an energy drink and get stuff done. And I also know when I need to shut the laptop and walk away. And that does take time, because I've had it where I forced myself to work through it and ended up feeling like absolute crap, and end up going back and redoing it anyway because I'm not happy with how it turned out. But similarly, I've done the thing where I walk away and I'm laid there relaxing, but actually I'm thinking this isn't helpful, and I know that I probably should have just got that done, right? So it does take time to fully understand that, but once you've got it, I think you have to listen to it, because that's the only way you're going to get the best out of yourself. And I always think I am very, not lucky because I've worked hard, but I'm very fortunate to be where I am. And I think the people that I serve ultimately, be it my own team, be it our clients at the end of it, be it their clients at the very end of it, deserve for me to show up in the best possible way and to do things in the best possible way. And so taking my own wants, needs, desires out of it, ultimately that's what they deserve. And so me making sure I'm doing things that I need to do to be in that best shape is the ultimate.
Beautiful. Yes. Yeah. No, like you say, it's catching it early, no, recognizing it. No, I'm in that place. Oh, I'm going cray. No, let's have a chat with myself. I need to I'm like, let's have a meeting, everyone in my head. Like, this is where we need to go from here. Like, I've totally been there before. So before we wrap things up, because I cannot believe we are near the end of our chat, my lovely, it's been phenomenal getting to know you, but we've still got a few more minutes. And so I just want to dive into the whole, like, what's next? You know, people always say, what's next? Like, what's your next move? And it might just be something really simple, like really tiny, or it might just be like you've got a grand master plan that you'd like to share with us. But what's your next move?
I've been asked this a few times recently, and the answer varies but has the same theme, right? Which is, like I say, my career started 8 years ago, and if you'd asked me what I wanted to do then, I was fresh into NatWest, and I'd have told you I want to be the CEO of NatWest, right? And that's pretty much changed every year as my role, etc., has changed. And so for me to sit and say this is the ultimate plan would be a complete lie, because I am a huge believer in taking opportunities as they present themselves. And wherever that may take me is where it takes me. I always say to people, I'm 25. I'm not in any rush to define exactly what the next 30, 40 years of my life and career look like. But the one thing I am always chasing is a challenge and something that keeps me excited. Again, that is the main thing for me. I have absolutely discovered a passion for culture, for engagement, for leadership, etc. And that is where I'm spending a lot more of my time, is in that space and thinking about strategy and how we grow the business and get it to a point where we sell it or I move on or whatever that looks like. And so for me at the moment, it's about creating a network where I am constantly learning, constantly evolving, and then how I continue to translate all of those learnings and knowledge onto my own team, but also the wider audience that I am slowly accumulating.
Beautiful. I love that. Yeah, I get asked that question a lot, and I like asking it to others to see how they respond, right? So we can all relate. And the reason I can never answer that question the same every time is because, like you say, when I was an employee and working for someone else and have done all my life, I was always trying to own my own business. I was always trying to start a business, and it wasn't really working out. I've posted about this before, about having 4 failed businesses, and then I gave up and decided to stay employed, and then I got made redundant. I was like, okay, I might have to change my plan here. And then obviously Manuka Media was born. But every time I set a goal, it's only because that goal is within the restraints of who I am and who I'm being within that time. I can't set a goal about someone I haven't been yet. You know, I haven't been there yet. I don't know who I am yet. Like, you know, people are like, you know, do you want to be a mother, or do you want to have an office with like 100 people there? And I'm like, right now, no, like, that's not a goal for me. 10x in the company just for the sake of saying I've got a big company is not a goal. Like, that just sounds like a headache right now, to be honest with you. Like, my goal, I'm already doing all the things that I love, because I literally, the thing that I crave most on a Friday is sitting on the sofa and cuddling with my husband, because I haven't seen him all week. Because, mate, I'm not Stephen Bartlett or Karen Brady, but I'm traveling all over the place, and that's just on my small little scale. I'm little Roz over here, little busy bee. Imagine if I had to 10x that and be like the big speakers out there. And don't get me wrong, I want to use my voice bigger and better. I want bigger stages because I want to empower people. But with that, be careful what you wish for, comes a whole different world. Like, you know, yeah, you know what I'm saying, right? You know, like the press, the media, like most days, guys, like I wash my hair once a week, you know, I haven't got time to I can't just wash my hair daily and put makeup on daily. I literally wash my hair once a week, and I wear makeup if I'm literally going out. Like, do you know what I mean, Kayleigh? Do you ever feel like that?
100%. I know that I like getting into bed with my cats and having a cuddle at the end of the day, right? Like, exactly that's where I am now. But like you say, that may well change, right? And people say to me, they're like, oh, when are you gonna have a baby and things like that? And I'm like, not anytime soon. That's not something I want right now. But that doesn't mean that at some point I might decide I don't want a career at all, and I do want to be a mum, and that's also okay.
Yes, so like people have asked, like, for example, sorry to joke, because this is such a hot topic for so many people now. Like, last night I was at an event and we were talking about this as well. And people are like, oh, you know, when you have a baby, you can carry on working and you work around the baby. I'm like, what if I don't want to work?
Yeah.
Are you going to think I failed if I have a baby and decide to, what if I like love being a mother so much I decide to become a surrogate? Who knows? I don't know. Like, no one knows what's going to happen, and I certainly can't make decisions for the person I have not yet been. So that's my mantra. That's what I say about goal setting. But honey, we need to get ourselves on another yacht. I think another yacht is due. We're gonna have to escape the country because it started raining now. So, you know, Dubai, like wherever you girls wanna meet me, I'm there. So I think I'd like to organize. I'm actually serious. Like, I think I'd really like to organize like an influencer trip. So if you're listening to this and you fancy yourself as a bit of an influencer and you have a community and you have a big passion, a big voice, do you know what? Let's just do it. We've planned it. Me and Kayleigh are hosting. We're having a beautiful yacht party in Dubai. Right. I'll when I'm serious about it, I'll post about it. Trust me. When I say something, I'm going to do it. So, honey, where can we find you? How can we connect with you? And certainly, where can we read all your amazing articles and blogs?
Yeah, absolutely. Best place to be LinkedIn. I'm just Kayleigh Graham on LinkedIn, and I regularly post all my content on there. But if you fancy checking out the comments on anything, then Accounting Web is the place to go. If you type in Accounting Web Kayleigh Graham, you will get a lovely page with every article I've ever put on there as well.
Gorgeous. Oh, amazing. Yes. And I will put this in the show notes so that people can get easy access to it as well. Send me anything you need, Kayleigh, like any of these interesting links, send them to me. I'll get them in the show notes. And that's it for another episode of The Money Honey. Yet again, I'm bringing you the best talent, the voices of these industries, as you know, property, construction, tech, finance. Like, I'm showing you right here, right now. These are the faces, these are the voices of the people in this space making moves, right? Really creating a buzz. And that's what we call positive pollination at Manuka Media. Is, you know, Kayleigh as a busy bee out there, you know, doing her thing, me doing my thing. And then together, this is the liquid gold, the honey. We are crazy about, you know, people's stories, people's voices. So if you have a story, right? And lots of people have imposter syndrome at this point. They're like, oh, I haven't got anything interesting to say. Doesn't matter, because someone out there is waiting to hear from you. Someone needs to hear your voice. Someone needs to hear it from you. It doesn't matter. It can come from Kayleigh, it can come from me, but your network, your clients, your family, your children, everyone's watching. People are watching you. So you need to use your own voice to make a difference. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Rosalia, and please remember to subscribe so that you can